Welcome to the Scott My Show, a podcast where we talk about bodybuilding, health improvement, and physique enhancement. Before we get into the show, I just wanted to let you know that I do offer one-on-one coaching. If you're interested in working with me, I offer personalized coaching where I can help you reach your goals, whether it be fat loss, building muscle, improving your health, or all the above. I provide tailored nutrition, training, and supplementation advice, one or all of those together, with 24/7 ongoing support to help you every step of the way with any questions you may have. If you're interested, you can DM me on Instagram, click the link in my profile to fill out a form, or ask any questions you may have. Also, we can hop on a free consult call where we can go over your goals, answer questions, and discuss what it would look like to work together. The show is brought to you by Element Electrolytes, and for a limited time, the Element Chocolate Medley is available with 3 flavors: chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry. They all go really well in any hot beverage, whether it's coffee, tea, or just a glass of hot water. And I personally love Element Electrolytes, and my wife does too. We've been using them for years. They're a great way to help boost performance, to help you get in the proper amount of electrolytes for a day, and help regulate brain health, physical health. Uh, Salt is important for a lot of things, and just drinking plain water doesn't get you the electrolytes you need. So check out Element in the description, or you can go to drinkelement.com/Scott Mize, and there you'll be able to get a free sample pack when you use my link and help support the show. Thank you. This is a quick disclaimer before we start the show. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical advice, and please consult with your physician before making any changes to your diet, exercise regime, or medications. Thank you, and on to the show. Joseph Pircher is an NPC competitive bodybuilder, heavyweight, and a good friend of mine. And he's also a very successful coach with Premiere Physiques. Joseph and I actually did the same show last year in April. Thankfully, he was in a different class for me. And yeah, I've talked to Joseph for a while. He coached me for a while. Have a lot of respect for you. So thanks for coming on.
Oh man, that was an awesome intro. Thanks for having me. I have a ton of respect for you as well, man. I appreciate you
Thanks.
having me on. I watched the show quite a bit. I feel like you put out more than I can keep up with, like just as a listener. You're on top of it. And doing podcasting myself and like all of us trying to stay up on putting content out and stuff. That's another aspect that I respect the hell out of, because I know how hard
Thanks.
it is from a scheduling standpoint, from keeping up with posting it, editing, all of it. So,
Yeah.
posting it on different platforms so that different people see it. I know how much goes into it, and you do it really well. So,
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
commend you for that.
It
Yeah.
means a lot. Yeah, well, thankfully I do like the absolute minimum, so that makes it easier. Um, cool. Well, would love to just start, Joseph, for like people don't know you as well, and it'd be helpful for me
Sure.
to hear it again. It's kind of
Yeah.
your history in bodybuilding, like what got you into it,
Yeah. Oh
how long
man.
have you been competing, stuff like that.
Yeah. I got into bodybuilding in 2011. This is before I,
Wow.
not to be that old head, but it was like before I had Instagram or really any social media. Some YouTube stuff. I remember following Antoine on YouTube like way back in the day.
Mm,
Um, but it like you either had to get the like Olympia results or the nationals results or whatever, either from like going to the website or from the magazines if they came
yeah.
out, and if you saw them. So I was just tall and frail. I had played sports my whole life, but I was just thin. I didn't put much effort into the sports that I played. Like I got by just on like God-given talent, I guess you could say. Not that I was super talented, but that was all that I put into it. I just, would show. I didn't do anything outside of like daily practice or the games. So I had gotten to a point where I was like, I guess I was 19 at the time, and I was just like, I'm just under, or at the time, I feel like I was right at 6 foot, and I was probably, man, 100. I think I was 138 pounds my first day in the gym,
Wow.
and just I can just remember I had a guy that dated my at the time my girlfriend's older sister, and he was, I don't know that he ever got on stage, but he was a bodybuilder. like through and through, lived the lifestyle. He was super jacked, like brought his meals everywhere, family parties. He would turn food away because he had his own food. And I was like enamored by it. I was like, man, like I am so drawn to like the amount of respect that this guy just garners like off the rip without even knowing him. Like just the way that people looked at him and all of it. So I begged this guy for a whole summer, like, dude, come on, help me out, put me on, help me out. And he wouldn't. And then one night we took him out and I bought him like just tons of drinks. I got this guy hammered. And he forwarded me a bunch of stuff off of his email. And it was like a plan, a diet, and everything. And like from day one in the gym, my goal was at some point be good enough to like get on stage. It wasn't like, oh, I got into training weights because of football, and then 3 years
Mm,
down the line, I got in on a meal plan and got into like from the jump, the goal was bodybuilding.
that's cool.
Um, I think too, probably like not to get too deep. I don't know the nature of how you wanted this to go, but from a psychological standpoint, I think I probably was really at the time I was really desperate for like a positive identity.
Mm,
I had been like a partier and kind of known as, the funny guy at parties or the crazy guy at parties. Used to sell drugs and shit, and you get like some level of respect for that, but it's not in a good way.
mhm,
So I think at the time I was just desperate for something that I could like kind of latch onto that would be a positive or viewed as like a
mm,
positive from the outside.
yeah.
Um, and so this was, it caught me at the right time, I think. So I did that. I trained and, followed a meal plan, and I did it all on my own, which just, looking back, you could maybe argue was like wasted time, but almost everything works at the beginning. So it's just a lot of learning. And then I did my first show in 2014. I did the Muscle Beach in New Jersey to that August of 2014. So I've been competing since then. I started helping people like for nothing in 2017. And then it was just like a slow progression. Like you help 5 people or 6 people for nothing and give them 6 months of a transformation. And then it's like, hey, would you pay me $50 a month? Like, and then a couple more people see those people in the gym and then ask about who's helping them, and they come to you, and then and then it's 100 a month. And then for me, I made the leap. I managed the Animal Pack brand for a long time
Yep.
in the marketing department, which was awesome experience. Um, Met a lot of awesome people there. Definitely built my kind of like bodybuilding network, so to speak, there. That was a huge part of it. And then in 2021, I had gotten to the point I could like pay my bills from coaching, like, just skate by every month. And so I saved up some money, like enough that would be a couple months of bills if I just totally fell flat on my face. Um, and I quit the job, moved out to Texas, and went all in on full-time coaching from there. So that's kind of the whole background, like origin story.
Yeah. That's really cool. It's so awesome that I didn't know that you started to compete. That's so cool. You don't meet many
Yeah,
people who say that. It's usually, I wanted to get girls or I wanted to be better at football or,
yeah.
something else, but being like, I wanted to compete. That's really cool.
Yeah, I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I wanted people. I've said this before on shows, but it wasn't about getting girls or really anything like that. Like I always had this like envision in my mind, probably because of the way that I met and got to know the guy that helped me at the beginning.
Mm,
But I just wanted to like walk through the mall, and if someone saw me from a distance, they'd be like, fuck, that guy is huge. Like that guy's got to be a bodybuilder.
yeah,
So in my mind, that was really like I wanted that. I wanted to look like a bodybuilder more than anything.
yeah,
But the goal was always like I'm gonna have to go through the whole process and get on stage at some point.
yeah. Well, you're well past that now.
Yeah, man,
People
it took
definitely say that in malls.
it took long enough. It took 14 or 15 years, but
Yeah. And do you think, so this is something I was thinking about today, is kind of like respect for the stage and respect for competing. Um,
yeah,
and it came to mind because I won't name him, but there's someone who's doing some shows and he was like, I'm going to keep competing until I get lean. And I was like, that mindset is just like so strange to me because I would never
Yeah,
show up if I didn't think I was like in shape, you know?
yeah,
And I
yeah,
certainly wouldn't use like doing more shows to get to stage and I like just
yeah.
to keep competing and like keep trying. Like I, as soon as I got
Is he?
smoked once, I would just step away and be like, okay, 1 year,
Oh,
I'm going to improve everything at least. And
yeah,
so do you think that kind of like, where do you think you learned that kind of like respect for the stage? And how do you do that?
man. So I'll tell you that. Can I ask, is that person, not to throw them under the bus? I would guess they don't have a coach. Are they just doing it themselves?
Well, they kind of have like four coaches. They're like
Okay,
one of
well,
these
that's
people
a
who's like,
problem.
I'm
So
consulting
he's
with this person and this person, you know.
so he doesn't have a proper system in place. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know why people try and reinvent the wheel. There's a handful of people I know that do a good job of coaching themselves.
Yeah.
But like Phil Heath had a coach. Like Phil
Yeah.
Heath had one coach. Like Jay Cutler had one coach. Like
Yeah.
this system works. Like I don't know
Yeah.
why people
I agree.
um, are obsessed with doing different stuff. But um, man, I don't. At the time, to be honest with you, like I knew how far off I was. Like there was a couple. I started in like a small like mom and pop gym that was like on top of like it was like the second floor of like a tile factory, and man, they eventually went out of business because they just I'd imagine they had 100 members or less. So it's like at any given time that you're there, like for the hour and a half that you're there, man, there was never more than 10 people in this gym.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, a couple of the people that went when I went were like big, like OG, like retired, either like power lifter or bodybuilders. And so I took a good like influence from them. They never directly told me like, hey, don't get on stage until you look the part. But um, I just knew how far off I was. I mean, the guy that originally helped me that I talked about, his name was Frankie. Um, and so like I knew I wasn't anywhere, I was a lifetime away from looking like that dude. So I was like, man, this is just not even going to be close. And to your point, the show that we did this past April was probably my worst showing in terms of conditioning.
Mm.
And it was the worst feeling ever.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine like actively wanting to do that or choosing to do that.
Yeah.
Like once that show ended, even to the point of probably like muscle loss, I was a madman on a conditioning chase. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I could
Yeah.
never feel that again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think because it's like there's so many angles where people could like see a benefit, I guess, in competing if they're trying to grow an online business, if they think it's going to bring
Mm.
them to social media
That's
stardom
a good
or
point. That's a good
give
point.
them credibility online or whatever the case is. But people are way quicker to get on stage. And also, I think, which is the goal, that was why they did it. But all of these different divisions facilitates this. Um, like when I started, there wasn't even, I don't remember there being men's physique at my first
Mm.
show. Like there was, I did the novice light heavyweight and the open light heavyweight. And I think there was like 29 in novice and 28 in open. And so there was six call outs. Like, and I
Jeez.
can remember being, whatever I was, people could look this up on the NPC website. I think I was like 13th and 11th or something. Like I can remember one of the memories that sticks out most about my bodybuilding career is standing to the side of the stage and watching the first call out, not in it. Second call out, not in it. I'm looking over in the crowd. I see my entire family showed up for the show. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what other bodybuilders looked like. So like as far as they were concerned, like I was there to win the show. And then here I am, like, third call out or whatever I was.
Yeah.
So I think now, like with men's physique, classic, there's a team division, a novice division, a true
Yeah.
novice division. It's way more, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but that particular mentality, like I'm just gonna keep competing until I'm in shape. I think it should be I'm gonna keep dieting until I'm in shape and then I'll get on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. it's just interesting because I learned so much from listening to your and Tommy's podcast back in the day. And like one of the things you guys always harped on is like, you know, being patient and this is a long game and like,
Yeah.
you know, knowing that you need to upgrade yourself
Yes.
if you have a bad showing, like knowing,
Yeah.
hey, I need to go do a lot of work and come back when I'm
Yeah.
ready, you know, and like kind of that respect for competing, I think is really valuable and something I think I learned from you.
Man, I appreciate that a ton. That was probably, if I had to put a singular theme or value statement on the whole thing. I mean, we did that podcast for over 2 years,
Yeah.
but Thinking Man's podcast with Tommy Stiles for anybody
Yeah.
that's listening, because there's some good information that's out there.
Great. Yeah, those
Uh,
episodes are timeless.
those are like, that would be the mission statement. Like, outwork and outlast is a phrase
Yeah.
that Tommy used to use all the time. And it's true. Like, like you were saying that I started from the jump, like being a bodybuilder, and that's kind of rare. It's rare because most of the people that get into bodybuilding and stay in bodybuilding are just like jacks off the rip. And like someone at the gym was like, hey, you should do a show. Like we've heard this
Yeah.
origin story a million times. Like
Yeah.
some OG at a gym was like, hey, there's a show in 2 weeks. You should do it. And they, diet for 10 days and show up and win the show. Like
Yeah.
my experience could not be more the opposite.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's been a long time in the making.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Um, and then I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your coaching. Like you had some really impressive guys step on stage, I think last year and maybe the year before as well. Like what do you like most about coaching? How do you like to approach it? And like what gets you excited about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I do this like full time, so I'm all in on this. You know what I mean? And I think a big amount of appreciation that I have for coaching is, one, I've been through this process, like going through the off season, going through the prep, ending up on stage, like either looking really good or not looking so good. And I've worked with different coaches, so it's like I've had the full spectrum of experiences where like you get a bad experience and you don't look great, or maybe the coach isn't great about communication, or maybe at the last minute the coach stops answering you or something. Like I've had all these experiences,
Mm,
and that leaves a bad taste in your mouth forever. On
mm,
the flip side, having a good experience where a coach is attentive the whole prep, they're empathetic the whole prep, and then they bring you in looking really good and they're right on the money on show day, like those moments stick with me forever. Like
yeah.
I'm forever indebted to the people that helped me do that.
Mm,
So like thinking about the idea of being kind of the make or break person on someone's bodybuilding experience is not a responsibility I have ever taken lightly.
mm,
Um, because it's a lot of truck. Like, dude, like your life goes into a contest prep. If you're doing it right and you're showing up like as an enhanced male, or not even enhanced, but as a guy at least, like with a standard of shredded glutes and like just crazy ab lines, and you're ripped everywhere. Like you poured your life into it. Like your life for a certain period basically came to a halt in every other aspect for you to
yeah.
achieve this. So it's like it's never something that I would take lightly. And I just get fired up about people that are as like I love bodybuilding, dude. So like to get to do this as a job, like I worked corporate jobs for years. I mean, I graduated college and started working in 2014, and I didn't leave that. I didn't start coaching full time until 2022.
Mm,
So I worked just short of like 10 years, like working for somebody else and doing things I wasn't super passionate about. So the idea that I get to wake up in the morning and just talk bodybuilding all day is like, dude, the coolest thing ever. Like, how can I not be excited about that? So like when I get people that um, are excited for the process and like, you know, they're just all in on it, and it doesn't even necessarily mean that they're robots like adherence wise, but they communicate well, they're excited about it. And like the people that are intrinsically hardworking and motivated, like those experiences are awesome because I fancy myself as someone of a similar cloth. So it's like being that person that can tell someone, hey, take 2 days off and chill out. Like, you're 8 weeks out. Like, you're going to look killer in 8 weeks, but right now I need you to chill out. I know how much of a relief that is when someone, a coach that I respect, tells me that. So to be someone like that for other people, I think it's, man, it's awesome. It's the
Yeah.
coolest thing in the world to do this.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's so evident that you're just so passionate for this, and like I can see it when I mean, I experienced it working with you, and also see it
Yeah.
when you're working with others. You just like pour your soul into this, so it's really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's guilty as charged. I'm like one of these people that wears my heart on my sleeve through everything.
Yeah,
So good or bad, I lay it all out there. So
yeah, that's great. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about off seasons. We're both just finishing up our off seasons.
yeah,
What do you think are some of the tenets of a successful off season? And then maybe you can talk about that like just in general or coaching
yeah,
perspective. And then what is something or maybe multiple things that you did differently this off season that you think really made a difference for you?
yeah. That's a good question. It'll yield like a cool conversation for us to have because, like we were saying off air, I've known you as someone that's had to eat just copious amounts of food. Um, and I probably should have been doing that sooner myself. And the last couple years, I've gone like headfirst into the deep end. I'll say, to get back to the first part before I get off on like a rant here, the tenets of off season. Um, I think, given that it's someone that's like hardworking and motivated and like they want to challenge themselves all the time,
Mm,
recovery is a huge tenet. Like sleep and
mm,
days off from the gym are a huge thing.
yeah,
Um, I've even, so much so, I've even drifted away from the idea of like deload training to just flat out time off from the gym. I've grown away from the point of seeing much benefit at all of sending someone into the gym to do like suboptimal, for lack of a better term, half-ass work. Like,
yeah,
just stay home.
yeah,
You'll get back to the place that you need to be recovery wise sooner if you just rest, if you just
yeah,
stay home.
totally.
For some people, that might even mean like they don't really necessarily follow a diet for 2 days, and they're not going to go off the rails, but it's like they kind of just are out of the structure of the diet and they get to have the meals put together how they want or whatever the case is.
Mm,
But I think recovery is a big one. Obviously, progressive training, progressive stimulus. That doesn't necessarily mean load. It can be reps. Um, it can be load. It could be form. And as a lesser option, it could be volume. I'm not totally sold that we constantly need to be doing more volume, or like chasing down the point of needing a deload. I'm not
yeah,
sold on that idea.
yeah.
But there's a million ways to do it. So I think progressive stimulus, progressive calorie surplus, despite what the internet wants to say now. I know that's somehow become a controversial topic.
Crazy.
Um, and I think you need to see your body weight and your scale, like the scale, go up.
Yeah.
It's a fine line because I've done both. I've done where you kind of just chase a number, and that doesn't really end up in a good spot most of the time. Um, as a trend, I think it needs to be headed up, but you don't need to be chasing down a number. But
Hmm.
like, to build a bigger house, you need more supplies. You need more bricks. So
Yep.
like, I use this example because I got into a little bit of a social media argument with one of these guys where he's just arguing that you don't need a surplus to grow bigger is the point. And
Okay.
I've said this over and over. I'm like, show me someone that has gone from light heavyweight to super heavyweight without eating in a calorie surplus. You can't, because that
Yeah.
person doesn't exist. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I
Good
think,
example.
just basic ones. I would shy towards, I would err on the side of rest in the off season,
Mm,
like, because those sessions, like, to create new muscle tissue, your sessions need to be awesome. Like, every single set across every exercise should really be a PR. I see people using PR, but it should be progressive. You should be beating what you did last time on
Yep.
basically every set. I don't
Yep.
really understand it when I hear people say, "Oh, I had a bad workout. Oh, I'm stalled." Like I can't relate. Like every set of every day that I have in the off season, if things are right, like it's going to go up.
Yeah.
And if I'm at a point where I feel like objectively that's not going to happen, I need a day of rest.
Yeah.
So, and then for the guys that are enhanced, like it's like um, it's demonized right now to say this, like the health model and healthy bodybuilding is all the rave, which is great. I think we should be proactive and doing the things we can, but like we're bodybuilding at the end of the
Yeah.
day. So the big secret is like your drugs need to be progressive too. Like
Yeah.
I will tell you point blank, like I got to that point that people now at the beach or at the mall will come up to me and be like, dude, you're a bodybuilder, right? What are you eating? What are you doing? Like I got to that point by taking more drugs than yeah, I had to
Same.
train harder than I ever did. I had to eat more than I ever had to do. Um, but the fact remains, like the drugs are part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And finding a way to make it tolerable health and side effect wise
Yes,
too, I think is
100%.
so critical because
Yeah,
you can't even push for 4 weeks if you're just getting horrible side effects or ruining your health. Like you have to find like the secret way, and it's different for everybody, but like some way
yeah,
that works that you can be healthy while pushing up the drugs. It's
that's it. That's
I
like
think
I've heard that guy Boss of Outlaw say because everyone knows the term hyper responder, which I agree that's like probably its own separate thing.
sure.
But he's described like some of the people that he's helped, like the genetic elite, as hyper tolerators,
Yep.
and I think that's probably separate. I think it's separate as like a skill or an attribute,
Sure.
or like a genetic gift. But I think like the genetic elite up top are probably both. Like
Yeah.
they're getting the crazy hyper response, and they're also like when it's like Clydesdale time, like you don't even notice it on their blood work. It looks
Yeah.
like they're on nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just made for it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but it's true. You have to almost like find your little like secret recipe of, pushing drugs, pushing food, pushing the training, and then being on top of your health subs, being on top of like your cardiovascular health, whether
Yeah.
that is some form of machine cardio, whether that's track and steps, whether that's a combination of both. Like it all goes together. And if you're
Yeah.
lacking on any of it, especially the health subs, like I know guys that tell me like, they can afford fucking 10 IUs of GH and all the gear and all the food. And then it's like, all right, here's a list of 9 health supplements I need you to go and order. And they're like, bro, that's not in the budget. And I'm like, well, fuck, like, what do we mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's part of the, like, it needs to be part of the budget.
Yeah. That's crazy. And what's something that you did differently this off season that you think made a big difference?
Oh man. Um, I'm big on it. I'm going to kind of lump the last 2 off seasons that I had together kind of for this one at least.
Sure.
And I think, cause that's where I put on like the majority of the size. I was around the same size for probably too long. And then the last 2 off seasons were kind of like a springboard for me. But I think,
How high did you get in body weight?
eating whole foods is a huge one. I think I probably relied on, whey protein too often early
Mm.
on in my days, where it's just like the quick and easy source. Like I loved whey protein and cream of rice or oats or something. I think it works. I don't think it works as well as whole
Mm.
food when you think about like what the process of building new muscle is.
Yeah.
In terms of this off season specifically, I dieting for 10 months to set it up was definitely something I'd never done before. I probably would not recommend or ever do it again. But dieting for almost a whole year, it set you up great. It like reset
Yeah.
my set point,
Yeah.
to where I could eat just a crazy amount of food. And, at one point I was doing no cardio, my body weight's going up and I look almost leaner.
Yeah. Wow.
That's from drug use, of course, as well. But, yeah, I think, being really lean is such an awesome starting point for like doing all of the things that you want to do to grow, like eating a lot of food, really prioritizing the energy output towards training and not so much on cardio. And then, just eating a ton of food and staying like sensitive to it, staying in a point that, at some point you're going to have to force food and it's going to be super uncomfortable, like way harder than any part of the prep, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
um, the longer you can string out like that good appetite, at least fresh off a diet, like the better you're going to be.
Yeah.
I'll say too, like in terms of training, I did a lot more volume this year than I ever have before.
Mm.
I've always loved, like high intensity, kind of like low volume Dorian Yates. Like that's kind of my bodybuilding North Star or idol, you could say. And emotionally, that's how I love to train. Um, but I think over the years, if I had to be honest with myself, for the amount of effort that went into that training and the amount of injuries that have come up from it and different things, I don't know that it was worth the squeeze.
Mm.
Um, when I look at like how I've responded to kind of the higher volume training, because I worked with Justin Compton, as you know, and
Yeah.
Justin is kind of just pushes it all on you. Like he's
Yeah.
just going to force you to be bigger. Like the drugs are high, the food is astronomically high, and then like if it was up to him, like I would be going into the gym and doing 50 sets of arms a
Yeah.
workout. Like, you know what I mean? Like the
Aggressive.
guy was just, yeah, the guy was just a workhorse.
Yeah.
I was never that. I can't handle that much work,
Yeah.
uh, but definitely higher volume where it's like, I used to do kind of the top set and then the back off, and then move on to a different exercise. And it might be 4 or 5 exercises per body part. And for most of this off season, it's been 3 to 4 working sets for every exercise. And
Wow.
it might be 6 or 7 exercises per workout.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
high. That's a lot of
Yeah,
work.
it's high.
Yeah.
It's that way for everything but quad. For quads, I've kept it the
Okay.
original style because I don't know that I could come back from that
Yeah.
much. And on my physique, I don't need to do that much.
Yeah. Yeah. You've always had big legs. Um, it's funny.
Just need some big
One
arms.
quads is one thing where it sucks, but I can do a lot of volume because
Yeah,
I think it's partly from being a rower for 8 years and having an
100%.
endurance background, using your
Yeah.
legs. But yeah, that's really interesting. How big did you get, or how big are you now, or what was your top?
I'm a little bit so I'm on the pre-prep cruise now. So it's
Sure,
definitely some weight has come off,
same.
some pop has come off. At my biggest, I was waking up I had a couple mornings that I woke up at 278
Wow.
and I was going to bed like 282, 283. I held to the most consistent like high weight that I saw. I was 276 every day for like 2.5 weeks at one point, and
Wow.
then saw the 278, and then we kind of, and the way that Compton does things when we started to cruise, it's to set up the prep so like the calories kind of came. I mean, he knew I was at the end. I was eating 7,400 calories a day on
Wow.
training days,
Wow.
and so every time I checked in, he'd be like, how you doing appetite wise? You know what I mean? Like that's the first thing he asked me. Like,
Yeah.
because I would just say, hey, here's my weight, here's my pictures, like things are good. And then he'd be like, are they? Like, how's your appetite? And I'd be like, it's going down. I never miss anything. Like, but
Yeah.
it's a struggle. It's definitely a struggle. So then when we got to like the cruise phase, he was like, hey, I'm gonna back things off and it should be like kind of a relief. So
Yeah.
I've held pretty consistently like 270, 271 right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad after lowering too.
No,
That's
yeah,
great.
I honestly, I kind of, because that's so much higher than I've ever been body weight
Yeah.
wise, I kind of expected it all to just go to
Disappear.
shit and fall off. Yeah.
That's what I'm expecting too. That's exactly where I
Yeah.
am. I'm like, when am I
Uh,
gonna wake up at 220 pounds?
100%. 100%. I really thought it was going to be like a weekend and I was going to be 250 is what I really like. It's illogical when you know, reflect on it, but
Yeah.
no, it's held pretty well, I would say. I mean, like obviously it's a little softer and a little less muscular looking, but it's
Yeah.
part of the process.
Yeah. One thing that made a big difference for me this off season, and it's not the best example, but the general theme I think can maybe be applied is like if there's something you're doing that could be optional that's just making your day like terrible. And for me, it's using insulin. Like I just feel
Yes.
horrible when I use insulin. Like
Is it the scheduling aspect of it, or like you physically feel terrible
I
from it?
physically feel like
Oh, no
just
shit.
more like every side effect you associate with being heavy, like a little bit of
Yes.
bloat, a little more trouble
Yeah.
breathing, like more
Yes.
tired, all of that just gets like doubled when I'm using
Yeah.
insulin.
I could see it. I could
Um,
see it.
and my blood glucose, without any insulin on like 6,000 calories is like, in the 60s in the morning. So it's like I don't need it, and
You do not need it. You are the last person that needs it.
and I can use it to add more food. I've done it
Right.
before, and it makes the food go down easier.
Sure.
And I get, probably a little bit stronger too, but it's just like it's not worth it. It's like
Yeah.
I don't need to make my days miserable for,
Right.
it's a 10-month off season. Like
Yes.
it's gonna
It's
suck.
arduous. Yes.
So yeah, just like, and that could be very different things for different people. Obviously, most people,
Yeah.
may need insulin to control blood glucose at high amounts of food. But if there's something that you think like you're not sure if it's making a difference and you think it's just gonna make your days suck and make the months long, like just think about whether it's worth it, you know?
Yeah. That's a great example. And so you're bigger than ever right now.
Yeah,
And so you got there without any insulin.
yeah,
Good for you, man.
yeah, yeah.
And then
It definitely would
how
have
are
been
your, oh, go
easier
ahead.
appetite wise with the insulin, but
Yeah.
I didn't like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah.
And I've
And
used it a
then
lot more.
yeah, yeah. And then so food wise, are you about where you've been, like in terms of like a highest amount of food, or
Oh, I
is
got
this the most?
way higher than
Yeah,
normal. I
yeah.
got to, I think the highest I had ever been before prep was like 4.5, 5,000
Okay.
calories. And
Oh,
then
so this
like
is quite a step up.
in the rebound, I was like 5.5, but that was like, gaining 3 pounds or 4 pounds a
Yeah,
week,
yeah.
and
And
then,
it goes down pretty easily at that point still.
yeah. And then, back down and then slowly built up. And, to get to 240, I had to get up to like over 6,500 a day,
Fuck, dude.
every day.
That's shoving. Yeah,
No low days, no.
yeah.
So,
That's shoving, dude. What about rest days? Is there a difference? Are you doing like an intra-shake that you pull out or anything? No?
uh, it's just like 40 grams of dextrose. That's it.
Okay. All right. So
Um,
that's the only difference.
yeah. But honestly, on some rest days, I would eat more just to try to like,
Yeah.
you
No,
know.
I've heard of that. I've heard of even to the extreme. I mean, I know you had just mentioned you don't like it, but I've heard examples. I remember I've heard a couple times like bigger guys that worked with Chad Nichols talked about in his off season, he would specifically only have you use insulin on your rest days,
Mm,
where it's like he's just trying to have you store and recover as
yeah.
much as possible to facilitate the
Yeah.
training that you're going to go do.
Yeah.
Which it makes sense, like especially if you got like one of these like workhorse like genetic elite guys, that totally makes sense. For most people, you'd ideally lower their rest day a little bit
Yeah.
because like their metabolic rate just isn't that high. They're just
Yeah.
not that muscular, like
Yeah.
the food has to come down a little bit.
Yeah. If
But
you're somebody like
like
um
me,
what's his name? Carlos Thomas Jr., just like
mm,
muscle coming out your ears, then yeah.
dude, where your muscles have muscles. That guy
Yeah.
is like from another planet. I heard
Yeah.
an interview he did Fuad's podcast, and I heard him like refer to someone else. He's like, oh, compared to this guy, like the rest of us are just mere mortals. And it's like, dude, no, you do not have the right to speak like that. Like,
Yeah.
please don't insult my intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's crazy. But yeah, I basically I figured out that basically 600 grams of raw weight rice is the most I can comfortably consume in a day, which
Fuck
for you is
yeah.
probably nothing.
That's a lot, dude. That's a lot.
So that's like 2 kilos of cooked weight rice. And so after that, I was just like, okay, what can I do? I started doing like just sugar candy,
Yeah.
and then like
And that's without the insulin.
yeah, full
Man,
sugar
you're a
ginger
freak,
ale.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just basically like that's my rice, chicken
Yeah.
every meal, and then just like try to put stuff on top. It's
That's
basically
very, very similar to the way that because I worked with Justin Harris before I worked with Justin Compton.
yeah.
And that's very similar to the way that he does off season, where
Oh,
he will set you to like a certain, like he will only get you to like say 400 grams of rice per meal.
yeah.
And then anything after that, like it's like he'll write in like any fat-free carb source that you like. It can be
Mm,
candy, it can be fucking juice, it can be whatever.
mm,
Um, which I think for people like you, giver, like no
yeah.
doubt about it, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I don't have like that same type of like metabolic rate.
Mm,
And I think he probably typically works with like, you know, enormous bodybuilders that can handle stuff like that. At the time when I was working with him, I'm like 5'11" and I was probably 250 or something. So it's like, all right, I ended up a little bit softer than I would have liked.
yeah. Well, I mean, you still got incredibly lean this year. So if you're comfortable talking about it, what are your plans for this year?
Yeah, I'm gonna do so I did Tampa last year, even though my plan originally was to do Florida State. In Tampa was I live in Tampa, so it was
Yeah.
literally like I just drove to the venue in the morning. We drove home in between prejudging and finals, and then I drove back, like slept in my own bed and stuff. It was
Yeah.
awesome. Don't
That's
don't get
great.
me wrong. It was an awesome experience. This year, because I needed to add probably 10 or 15 pounds to really fill out the like heavyweight look to my frame, and then still be in that like Tampa, I was in like stellar conditioning, but then I started to see what I was missing,
Mm,
but like body part muscularity wise.
mm,
Whereas the show that we did together earlier in the year, I came in more full, not up to par conditioning wise. So like my front and side shots looked super muscular,
yeah.
and then my back shots were just not hard enough.
Mm,
And then for Tampa, it was kind of reversed. So then it's like, okay,
mm,
if I expect to be in this conditioning, but filled out and this muscular, it's probably another 10 or 15 pounds. So I will do it, doing the Florida State, it gave me a little bit more than a year to work with. So I'll do that, and that is like mid-August. And then
okay.
I would like to set a standard for myself to where if I win the overall, I'm going to go to North Americans.
Cool.
And if I don't, I'll pocket the qualification, but I don't think I'm going to go.
Okay.
Like if I win my class, don't win the overall. I'll pocket the qualification and then like use that for probably next year.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
We're
maybe
gonna
use that for like the Arnold next year or something like that, like
Oh,
something
yeah,
kind
that'd
of
be cool.
earlier. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna be competing at pretty much the exact same time.
What are you doing?
So
Is
I'm
that
gonna
Muscle Beach?
so I've technically qualified from the show we did.
Mm, mm.
Um,
Oh,
so
that's right.
I'm gonna
I
do
forgot that it's a year. Like that was so long ago in my
yeah,
mind. I'm like,
it's so weird how it works. It's also different for
that's a great
different national
idea, though.
shows too, though, I think.
What do you mean by that?
Like some national shows, they're like, is it within 12 months that you've qualified?
Oh, really?
Some
Oh,
national
interesting.
shows, it's like, is it
I thought it
within
was
the
the
last
calendar year,
two
like
two
the last
years?
calendar year. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's different for different national shows.
Okay.
But I'm doing North Americans and I'm
Oh,
gonna
awesome, dude.
do in classic, and then I'm gonna do I think there's a show every weekend here in New Jersey,
Yeah.
as you know.
Yeah.
But I think the show I'm gonna do is there's one in Queens that's like the
Oh, okay.
um, you know, Powerhouse Classic or something like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Steve Weinberger show.
Yeah.
I think it's at the beginning of August, so
Okay.
that
Cool.
should line up nicely.
That's awesome. I always think it's a good idea. Like for most people, like when the idea is one of these bigger shows, like a national level show, even if you are qualified, I think it's awesome to get like almost use the first show as the target show. Like be
Yeah,
ready for that show. And then you could just cruise and come in a little bit more full, but just as conditioned at the
yeah,
at the national show, you know?
yeah. And this is going to be my last year competing, so
Oh man,
that's
sorry to hear that.
otherwise I
That
probably
was exciting news up until that
I
point.
would hold this same standard as you are probably of winning
Yeah.
the overall, but this is it. So I just want to go do North
No,
American
you gotta go. Yeah,
experience.
you're qualified,
Yeah,
dude. You look fucking stellar in
thank
April
you.
and won a class. So it's
Thank
like
you.
you earned the right to go.
Thank you. So that'll be fun. A good way to send it off.
Well, that'll be awesome. Hopefully
Yeah,
I'm there for it, dude.
yeah,
Hopefully we'll get to compete together
yeah.
and
That'd
send
be
you off
awesome.
properly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be. I've heard it's a very well run show. All the gear you
I've
did
heard the
use.
same. I've heard the same.
And I was thinking about doing T-Neck, the universe, but
Yeah.
I thought it'd be cool to do something like, not that's across the river. It's something like
Yeah.
in a new city in Pittsburgh, um, different type of show. So
Yeah, you got to travel. It's one of the big three. I mean, no knock on the universe, but it's like, you
yeah,
know, USA's nationals and North Americans are a
yeah,
little bit of a different level, I would say.
yeah.
And then that sounds that I have always felt like all those shows, like if you were to tell someone that isn't in bodybuilding, like, oh, I'm qualified and I'm going to the North American Championships, like, holy fuck, that sounds like a big deal. It's like, yeah, it's everyone from Mexico, the US, and Canada. Like, it sounds cool. So
That's funny. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be it. I just have to make weight,
I
which
was gonna say, what is your weight cap?
so it's 202 for me.
Okay, that's
I was
doable.
I think it'll be fine. I was
Yeah,
193 last year.
yeah.
And that was without any like
Any
special
funny stuff? Yeah,
yeah, so I think I mean my goal is to be peeled at like 205, 207 and then
and then make
squeeze
weight.
in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
More than reasonable, man. You gave yourself plenty of time and you're walking the walk too. I saw your like training videos the other day, like I was saying, and I was like, fuck, he's definitely bigger than he's ever been before.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Definitely,
You set
definitely
it up
big.
really nicely. If this is the end for you, you definitely were strategic about it and like put the plan to action.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to give it everything I had for one last year. And then, you know, I think the thing that's pushing me the most to retire is just the pushing food in the off season.
I hear
Um,
you, man.
like you say, it's a job and
Yeah.
my wife wants to go dance in the park and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. So
My wife
it's
wants to go do basic human activities, and I am unable to do so.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
I
life for
understand
me.
you earned it, man. You earned the right to go do that after you're done.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. You've been pounding a lot of food for a long time, so
Yeah.
I respect it.
So I'll just stay lean and do the, dad TRT plus and
You're gonna
still
look
train.
crazy, dude. You're gonna look awesome doing that, and
Yeah.
it will be so easy for you to hold, like
Yeah.
compared to what the push is like.
Yeah. It'll be easier to breathe too.
Yeah, yeah. To walk, to tie your shoes, like
what are some things that you learned last year about prep that you want to apply this year? You can do like big overall stuff that went wrong, but also just like more nuanced things you learned that you didn't know before about yourself or about prepping.
I'll say, so I had taken like a 3 year off season leading into the prep for the first show that I did, the show that we did together. So I would say that that was probably a mistake,
Hmm,
staying that far away from contest shape for that long
hmm,
was probably a mistake. If I had to redo it, I probably would have broken it up and competed somewhere at like the 14 to 18 month mark out of the 3 years, and brought it all the way down, like peeled and then rebounded up out of it. And
yeah,
I think I probably would have ended up in the same spot, like muscularity wise, or maybe even a little bit better, to be honest.
yeah,
Um, but then it's like you haven't accumulated and solidified those fat cells quite the same, like by being in a surplus for so long. So to me, like that changed my whole, because like you said on the podcast with Tommy, we were always talking about like play the long game, like, you know, add as much human as you can before you go compete. And how crazy of a process it is to like build your body bigger. But I also going through it myself and then being disappointed with like my body's response to the prep. I would not recommend that long of an off season or that long of a surplus for so long. And if you are going to do it and you're set on not competing, I would recommend at one point getting like super, super lean, even if it's just for like a mid off season mini diet. Like,
Yeah.
um, you could probably do it in a shorter time for the prep and just throw caution to the wind and get as lean as you possibly can, as fast as you can, so you could get back to growing. But I think that was probably the biggest takeaway. Like I would say the most prominent feeling that I have when I think about last year is the feeling of like borderline like embarrassment or disappointment about that showing conditioning
Mm,
wise. So then the big takeaway then is just like don't have that long of an off season, or don't stay that big for that long. Um,
mm.
and when I say big, I mean heavy. I don't mean like big muscular.
Yeah.
So that's one. And I definitely learned after the second show, I was not learned, but I was reminded of the value of a proper rebound after being in proper stage conditioning, and how like people have come to say like, oh, there's no magic in it, and oh, this is the time to
Mm,
get healthy, and all that stuff. Like if your health is a wreck, by all means, like you should come off the drugs, and or like if your life is just a wreck after being in a prep and like you ruined your job and your relationship and everything else, like by all means go take care of that. For me, that wasn't the case across the board. My health is like, luckily, that's my probably best genetic gift, is just my health, my tolerance to all this stuff. Um, and my relationships and everything were intact and really good. And so I had like a 9 week rebound that I basically treated like just an extension of contest prep. And I feel like I want, Compton, he's not really one to give you like unsolicited compliments.
yeah.
And at one point he was like, dude, you made a year's worth of progress in 8 or 9 weeks. So I was like, oh
That's
shit, like,
awesome.
okay.
That must have felt
And
good.
so it was awesome because I
Yeah.
was like, man, I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's good to see it result in something.
Yeah.
And then because of that, I talked a couple of my clients into doing the same, and they are different bodybuilders this
That's
year
awesome.
because of it.
Yeah.
So that's been like a huge, like I said, I knew this. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, like, yeah, post show rebound is a great time to grow. This was a big, big reminder, and also I think it raised the ceiling on what I think is possible
Mm,
with a proper post show rebound. Like
yeah.
get stage lean, have shredded glutes as a guy, and then like really, really stay on top of it. Like, eat Saturday and Sunday after the show, and then give yourself anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks where you just nail the plan, and it will literally, like, especially if you're trying to make a career of this in coaching or fitness or whatever, it will change your life.
Yeah.
So that was like a huge, huge positive takeaway. Um, I left some notes for myself actually about like different things that I wanted to remind myself to do, because with that long off season, there's things that I got away from, or things that I didn't put a
Sure.
big priority on that I should have. Fasting cardio is one of them.
Mm,
For a while of that like first half of prep, I kind of did it not whenever, like I would do some of it fasted, but then it's like, okay, I do some of it post, or I'll go back before my last meal and do some of it there or whatever. Um, I and then like when I got with Compton for the second show, he's was like, you must do all this cardio fasted, until we got to a point where I was doing like 2 hours, and then you break it up.
wow.
But like until you like, as long as it's an hour or less, like do it like you're an enhanced male, do it all fasted.
Yeah.
Like I don't care about these studies on, you know, untrained undergraduates that,
Yeah.
have never used drugs and are presumably sub 170 pounds. Like if we're talking about the difference of being 2% leaner on stage at a bodybuilding contest where you're 220 pounds, like, yeah, I absolutely think using some of these like fat loss lipolytic drugs and then going and doing your cardio on an empty stomach, I absolutely think it makes a difference.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So as a reminder to myself, I promise, like I will only be doing that until it gets to a point that I have to break it up. Um, and I think too, I let myself down a little bit posing wise
Mm,
um, for the second show, because I prepped like November to August, and so first show the presentation was good. I had done the work to practice, even though I had been off for a long time. It could have been better, and I think I just kind of ran out of steam dieting that long. I ran out of, and this is not an excuse. I'm just kind of talking you guys through like where the thought process was. I think when I reflect on it, I ran out of my like excitement for the whole process, kind of ran out of steam from dieting and being in a
Yeah.
deficit for so long
And that
that
was
when
the
I
thing to
got
go.
to, yeah, like when I got to like 10 or 8 or 6 weeks out from the second show, when I was like on track to be in great shape, that like the extra posing practice that I consistently have always done in past preps, that just went out. Like it just, I lost it as a habit where it was like, man, I can barely get off of this couch. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
run
I
through
can,
4 weeks.
I can totally see that doing 2 hours of
Yeah,
cardio.
yeah. Like it almost felt like I had nothing left for any extras. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's, and I don't mean that as an excuse. I could have done it. I
Yeah.
physically could have done it. I was just too worn down, I think, mentally and physically to be excited to go do it. And so this time again, I promised myself to stay up on
Yeah. And don't do a 10-month prep.
that. Definitely don't diet for that long. Yeah. Cause like I noticed certain things, like I worked really hard to like improve my back and my arms last year. And at the first show, I wasn't in the best shape, but that muscularity like showed. Like
Yeah.
they looked good. If you cover my glutes, those other body parts looked really good.
Yeah. You looked
And then
huge.
by the time that I got to Tampa, they had withered, I think. And it
Mm.
was just like, like I had talked about, the extra posing went out the window. A lot of like the volume that I talked about being a positive, I started to pull that way down because I just felt like I couldn't even get through it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think then those body parts, like it was like newer, fresher muscle. And I think it kind of fell off of me a little bit at the end.
Do you think it'll be easier for you to get lean this year?
I fucking hope so. It
I
better. It better.
bet it will.
If I'm being totally honest, I wouldn't say I have my doubts. That's from day one, that has always been a huge concern for me. That's why I was so embarrassed last April.
Mm.
Because I've taken a lot of pride. Most of the shows that I've ever done before last year, without fail, the copy and paste feedback was you were probably the most conditioned guy at the show. You're just tall and you need to be way bigger.
Mm.
Like every time. So it's
Yeah.
like I took a lot of pride in being conditioned, and then so that hurt last year. But this year, um, I would hope so. I'm in way better shape, even being like way heavier, and I think that's just because, like I talked about, like even gaining tons of weight, I was lean for so long last year that it's like my set look, like my standard look, is just a lot better.
Yeah.
Like my glutes are still square, my hamstrings are still in on my back poses. Like, um, there's plenty to come off, but I think it would be a lot easier. I'm also starting a lot farther out this year.
Yeah.
So I've always liked 20 weeks
Hmm.
for me, like just knowing my own response. And I'm not blaming him at all, but just sharing what the interaction was. I started the year last year with Justin Harris, and he refused my idea of doing 20 weeks. He was like, nope,
Mm.
16 weeks is all we need. And I was like, dude, I'm pretty soft. I don't know about that. And he's like, trust me, 16 weeks is all you
Yeah.
need. So I probably could have used more. So I'm going to start at 22 weeks this time.
Wow.
So if that means just taking it a little bit slower at first or whatever, I kind of just put the process in Compton's hand. I'd like to think I'm in better shape. I'd like to think I'm more muscular. Um, and I made it a point to like develop the muscularity of my glutes much more this year. So I think that means the conditioning will show sooner. Um, so I hope so. I'm also going to toy around with some of these peptides. From the way that
Yeah.
everyone's making
Same.
these things sound, I'm apparently going to be lean in 4 weeks. So
I just ordered some of them too, so we'll see.
what did you order? The SLU?
Yeah, I ordered SLU and the 5 amino MQ and Med
Oh yeah.
C.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's a whole toolbox
see
of
how
them
it
to use. So
goes.
I'm gonna try the SLU and like I'm gonna try that from the jump at 22 weeks out and
Yeah,
see what the deal is. I'm also gonna try like a micro like mini dose of retrutitide.
yeah.
So I'm not
I
like
used that
especially at
last
20.
prep. I used semaglutide the
Oh,
whole prep. Yeah,
okay, okay. So do you know the difference?
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
that's why I'm interested in this. I don't, especially starting in 22 weeks out, I'm not worried about like my appetite or
Yeah.
cravings for food.
Yeah.
This Retreatide, apparently there's like composition change and actual fat loss. Like
Yeah.
even if your calorie input output doesn't change.
Yeah.
So I'm interested. Hearing that, I'm interested in it. But I'm going to run like much less than even like some of the numbers that I've like. I hear
Yeah.
guys starting at 2 milligrams a week.
Yeah. That's way too
Uh,
much.
I'm going to try like 400 micrograms a
Yeah.
week,
Yeah. I think that's
um,
smart.
and see, like, just see. Like, I can always go up,
Yeah.
but I just don't want it to crush my appetite, right? Because
Yeah.
at that point, I'm still going to be eating quite a bit of food, and I want my training
Yeah.
to be really good. So
For
I'm
me,
going
the
to try.
main benefit I saw from the semaglutide was just blood glucose control. So like I
Okay,
didn't wake up a bunch at night. My sleep was
right.
excellent throughout because I think a lot of what
Oh,
wakes you up is your blood glucose is crashing.
yes.
And then also
And
like,
then you wake up starving.
yeah, that like, oh shit, hunger feeling. Like, you
Yes.
get like,
Like it's like a panic.
yeah, yeah. I never got that. So that
Excellent.
was nice. So those two things
Oh,
just
that's
made
good. I
it a
didn't even know
lot.
about that. I'm looking forward to that.
Those are the those
Man,
are
these
the
are magic drugs, huh?
those are the two things that I didn't have to deal with that made it like very, very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, I'm all in on the idea of like mitochondrial support and efficiency. And so I think compared to where I started the last diet, things just are like couldn't be more different, to be honest with you. So
Yeah.
I am hoping that it results in a bigger and just as or even slightly more conditioned look than what I did at Tampa last year. And if I can do that, regardless of how I'm placed and which, Kai Green looking freak shows up, I can be happy with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think you're going to do amazing. I'm really excited to see your season, and hopefully
Thanks,
we
man.
both end up
Likewise.
at North Americans. That'd be really
Yeah,
fun.
fingers crossed, man. That'd be something. That'd be awesome. Because it was awesome being there with you in April. It
Yeah,
was so cool to
that was
compete with
so
you.
fun. Honestly, you helped me so much. I had no idea what was going on most of the time.
Yeah, I mean that'll be a new experience for both of us. First time doing a national level show for either of us.
Yeah,
So we'll go and do it and take it on head on together. That'd
yeah,
be cool. That'd be really cool.
yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much for the time, Joseph. It's great chatting with you as always.
Yeah.
We'll do it more often. And if people want to reach out to you, work with you for coaching, where should they find you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Jay Perch on Instagram, JPIRCH. On the Instagram, my coaching website's on there, Premiere Physiques. And then same thing, I'm Jay Perch 23 on YouTube. I have the One More Rep podcast. I do that with Austin Brown and Tom Mattice. I'm going to be, I say this almost every year, but this time truly, I'm going to document my prep mostly on YouTube. It seems like the censoring is pretty heavy on Instagram for whatever
Yeah,
reason. Maybe I shouldn't.
crazy.
Maybe I need to stop posting political stuff. But yeah, that's you can just pretty much search my name and find me anywhere. So man, I
Cool.
appreciate you so much for having me on. It was awesome. One, it was like I said, it was awesome being in the other chair this time, getting to come on someone else's show. Big honor though being able to come on your show because you've been doing this for a
Thank
long
you.
time and you've had some killer guests, people that
Thanks.
I'm not exactly in the same category as. So
Oh, yeah,
I
you're welcome.
I appreciate you having me on, man, and it was an awesome conversation.
Of course. You're welcome on anytime. Thank you.